everybody, this is Laura, City Scrapper. Thank you so much for joining me on my channel today. Today I have a layout that I made for Mixed Media Mayhem. If you're joining us for the first time, Mixed Media Mayhem is a weekly series in which an inspiration piece is chosen and then everybody in the hop will create a layout based on that inspiration piece. It might be a little hard to see, but there is a border. I'm not sure if it's a stamped border or if it's part of the paper that was used, but I wanted to have the same effect on my page, so I'm using a Spellbinders stamp. It's called Large Cheesecloth, and I'm using some Staz On ink in jet black, and I inked all around the border to create a similar look. The original has a photo of a child standing on the beach, and I'm using the same type of photo. I haven't scrapbooked this photo before because it's a little dark and maybe not 100% clear, and I'm trying to go back to my albums and scrapbook photos that I have, for one reason or another, been avoiding or not been as enthusiastic to scrapbook. And even though this isn't the clearest photo in the world, I like the mood of it. So I thought that I would also make a beach layout, although I approach it a little differently as far as the color scheme. So I add a whole bunch of stamps to the background. One problem that I had is that my Staz On ink is really not as dark as I would like it to be. I'm not sure if there's a re-inker for that or if I just have to buy another pad, but that's something I have to do fairly soon because I really do like to stamp on my layouts, and this stamping turned out to be kind of light because of the fact that the stamp pad is not as dark as it once was. I use quite a few different stamps on this layout. In the description box, I'll include any information that I have about all of the stamps. There are a couple that I don't have a manufacturer for, such as the one that I'm using right now, but for most of the stamps, I am able to tell you the manufacturer. The number and letter stamps that I put on first, those are from a Stampers Anonymous stamp set called Faded Type. Then I put down some dots. Those are made by a Stampin' Up stamp. A few of the stamps that I use are from a Tim Holtz collection. It didn't have a name, it just said MM1 on the packaging, but I use a dot stamp and also a grid stamp from that set. I like the way the dot stamp is a little darker than the other stamps. This star stamp, that one is also from that same MM1 Tim Holtz collection. And again, because the stamp pad was so light, I had to stamp so many times, and so the stars ended up not looking as crisp and clear as I would like, but I don't think that you notice it too much because I add so many other things on top of this stamping. As I said, I don't know who made this script stamp, but there are so many similar stamps out there. This is a stamp that I use quite a bit. I got this at a flea market or a garage sale, and the back was looking kind of rough on the stamp. It didn't affect how it's stamped, but I wanted to look a little neater, so I took a piece of fun foam and I added it to the back of the stamp. And now it's just a little bit better looking. Now I'm going to begin to add some color to the background. I'm using some Tattered Angels Glimmer Mists, and I'm using the packaging technique. I use a number of different colors. For this layer, I use some orange colors, and I also added a touch of Old World Brown. I was starting out with a more muted look, but I do end up using a little bit more of a brighter orange as we go along. The first shade of orange that I added is called Apricot Jelly, and then I added in some sunlight, that's the yellow color that you see, and then I started adding some orange mist, and that's the brighter orange color. I am alternating between the packaging technique and splattering the background. The paper collection that I used for this layout is a really old one. It's called Sea Glass, and it's by K & Company. There was something about the mood of this piece of pattern paper that I'm using in the background that I thought went with my photo. So there wasn't much pattern paper that was required, but I also use a number of the embellishments from the collection. In the original, this part of the layout is very faded, and in my layout, it's going to be a little bit more prominent. I like the way the orange was looking, but then I was thinking that I also wanted to add some blue. So again, I'm using my Tattered Angels Glimmer Mists in a couple of different colors. I use imperial blue, I use aquamarine, and I also use another Tattered Angels product. It's called SImply Sheer, and that doesn't have any sparkle or shine to it, and that color is called Blue Night. I'm using a combination of these colors, and I'm working them into the areas either in between the orange areas or slightly overlapping. And I wanted to include a lot of splatters on this, so I go around with my small paintbrush and I add splatters as I go along. Not too long ago, I purchased quite a few sprays of different brands, but I know the Tattered Angels Glimmer Mist colors so well because I've used them for so many years. So I always tend to go to those because I am familiar with how each color is going to look, and I should probably try to start using some of my newer sprays that can still be easily purchased. But it's hard to switch to new products because I'm so familiar with these. You could see a little of it, but a huge mess is forming around me. I feel like this does happen every time I create a mixed media background. My table gets absolutely full of all the different products that I'm using, and I have to stop periodically and clean up. And I haven't done that yet, so I'm kind of working in a little area in between the big mess. As in the original, I'm adding some black splatters in a diagonal from the upper right hand corner to the lower left hand corner, and for that I'm using some watered down black acrylic paint. And while I put the majority of those black splatters on that diagonal, I also wanted to add a couple of little touches of splatters to the rest of the layout. So I turn the layout around and I just add a few splatters. I'm not sure that they're even noticeable, but I didn't want the black splatters on the diagonal to be the only splatters on the page. And then once I was done with the black splatters, I thought I would go in with some white splatters. I always love to add white splatters. I just feel that it adds a really pretty effect to the background. And when there's a lot of sprays on the background, the dots are often not totally clear and distinct, but I still like the way that it adds some variation. After looking at the original, I was thinking I would like to use a chipboard frame from my stash in this layout. So I found this Recollections frame, and it had a layer of paper on both the front and the back. So I peeled off the paper that was on the back, and that allowed me to have a frame that I could customize. So I covered it with gesso, and then after the gesso was dry, I used this Tim Holtz stencil. I think this is called Dot Fade, and some Liquitex modeling paste, and I added a little bit of texture to the frame. Now I'm adding some droplets of water, and then I'm rolling my paper towel over the top to lift those up. That creates a cool effect. And I am not going to lie, I was a little afraid to add these stripes of paint. I used a really old paintbrush that has a lot of fiber sticking in lots of different directions. That helps me to make a more rustic looking stripe. I'm using a couple of different colors of paint. These are Waverly paints. I got these in Tuesday Morning quite a while back. I use them frequently. And I was, like I said, a little bit afraid to add these to the layout. At first I was thinking maybe I just won't add these to my layout. And then I was thinking, no, I have to use the inspiration piece, and it's such a eye-catching part of the layout on the original, so I thought I have to give it a try. And I'm glad that I did because it ended up coming out fine. As I'm adding the stripes of paint to the layout, it dawned on me that the background that I have is so much brighter and there's so much more going on than in the original. And although I like the mixed media that's in the background, it competes with these stripes of paint. And I knew that I was going to have to work on the background as much as I liked it. I was going to have to do something to dull it down a little bit. So I added some white splatters to the paint. I like doing that a lot because I don't like to have solid areas of color or solid areas of color that are particularly large. I started adding some heavy gesso to the background. I wanted to first separate the stripes from the background, and then I was thinking that I should dull down the background a little bit. I knew that I wasn't going to make it as light as it is in the original, and that's okay. The two layouts don't have to be identical, but there was wisdom in making the background not as prominent and letting the dark stripes of paint be the more prominent area. So I thought that by adding some heavy gesso to the top of the sprays, you'd still be able to see all that work that I did, but this would make it fade a little bit and be a little bit more like a background than the most prominent area on the layout. So now the background is complete and I am adding my photo. I added the photo first to the frame and now I'm attaching it down to the background using some ATG adhesive. And now I'm going to start adding some embellishments. And all of these embellishments are from, as I said, the K & Company Sea Glass collection. The original only has a few embellishments. It's not overly embellished, so I wanted to do the same thing with my layout. I think I add a few more embellishments, but I wanted to keep it lighter than normal because I can definitely get heavy-handed with the embellishments at times. There was a whole page of word stickers, so I chose 3 sentiments, mainly based on the colors because there were so many appropriate words, but I was also making sure that the words that I picked out did match the layout. I picked out vacation, sun, and shore. My title is going to be Greetings from the Shore, and that's on the sticker that I just placed on the layout. I had to put a couple of layers of the fun foam on the right side of the sticker so that I could rest it on the frame. I also picked out some chipboard sunglasses. I thought that those were a nice color, went really well with the layout. And then I used ATG adhesive to attach those sentiments down because they weren't very sticky at all. And sometimes on mixed media pages, you need more adhesive rather than less adhesive. Originally, I was thinking that I was going to leave the frame white. I don't end up doing that, but I added some pearls because I thought that would go along with the clean, crisp look of the frame. I took a dauber and some Distress Oxide in black soot and I inked the edges of the entire layout. I waited until I was done with the mixed media for this step because Distress Oxide will run if you add water to it, so I wanted to make sure that I had all the mixed media completed so that I wouldn't accidentally cause the Distress Oxide to run. I wouldn't want black all over my layout. So my younger daughter took a look at the layout and I asked her what I could add and she suggested I add some netting and I thought that was a good idea. So I got this netting out of my stash. This was from Michael's. I bought this several years ago and I add a little piece to the left of the photo. And between the netting and the foam, I was finding that the frame was not sticking to the layout, so I put a bit of heavy-duty gel medium underneath it, and then I put my die cutting machine on top of it, and that helped it to stay put and attach to the layout. I also added some of the heavy-duty gel medium to the back of this sticker. Nothing was sticking extremely well, so I did go in with quite a bit of adhesive for most of the elements on this page. I do find that the heavy-duty gel medium is a great adhesive for mixed media pages. I put a little bit of the adhesive underneath the netting. It dries perfectly clear, so I don't have to worry that it's going to make a mess on the page. And then I was thinking that I wanted to add something different to the frame. I just felt that those pearls were a little boring. So I'm using these Paper Studio jewels. I love the way they're iridescent. The light blue ones are really pretty too. I just decided to go with the dark ones for this layout. And since there's gesso and modeling paste on the frame, I was thinking it would be best to just attach those jewels down with the gel medium right away. I did want to add some pearls to the layout too, so I add a few by the sentiments. I alternated which side of the sentiment I was putting them on, and then I was thinking I wanted to add some color to that frame after all. I'm using some Deco Art Metallic Lustre. I start out with some orange flicker and I put it on really, really lightly. You can barely even see it, but I wanted to start out light and move to darker if I needed to, because of course once you put it down it's harder to get off. So I liked the way the blue was looking. That's called cosmic blue. So I added that in a couple of different places, and then after that I went back in with a little bit more of the orange flicker, and I was careful to use a different finger for each color so that I didn't mix the colors together on my fingers before I put it down on the layout. And then I think that the second coat of the orange flicker was just the right amount of color. This doesn't make a huge difference on the layout, but I do like the way it brings everything together on the layout, the whole color scheme. And as a final touch, I added a seahorse onto the frame, and that completes this layout. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. I really hope you enjoyed this video. I had a lot of fun making this layout. Please take a look in the description box. You'll find links to all of the other scrapbookers who are part of this collaboration, and you can see their take on this original piece as well. I hope that if you like mixed media and haven't given it a try, that you'll start out simple, maybe with some watercolors, and try adding a little bit of paint or a little bit of texture into your layouts. Have a great day, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.